We gave our car to OPB. It was a family car we'd had in the garage for some time and weren't using it.
To find out more about donating your vehicle, call 503-235-5625 or go to opb.org/car.
It seemed like a good donation for a great cause, and we also received a tax credit, and that was fantastic.
Business partners Young and Roar Marketing Communications Group and Avalon Hotel and Spa have made a contribution to Oregon Public Broadcasting. Additional funding has been provided by you, the contributing members of OPB.
A new nation and the Supreme Court are born.
You had two major views about what the Constitution really stood for.
Everything people do in this time is setting a precedent. They were fighting to preserve the Union.
Desperate times had called for desperate measures.
Until Marshall, I think that anybody really have a coherent vision of how powerful this institution could become.
One nation under law, the Supreme Court.
See the extraordinary efforts wildlife experts are taking to diagnose and protect Oregon birds from the deadly bird flu. Then we're off to the coast for a look at a vicious predator threatening a number of species. You'll also meet a tiny fish that survives under incredibly harsh conditions.
Oregon Field Guide, Thursday night at 8:30.
From American experience.
A biological weapon is alive, sees the human species as meat.
A Pandora's box shrouded in secrecy.
What is the nature of this weapon? What would it mean to use it?
Go inside America's bioweapons program.
What you're exposed to today, you won't know that you're sick for maybe several weeks. You might be under attack right now.
The living weapon on American Experience.
Monday night at 9, here on OPB. Shop OPB.org for public television's best.
Serving Oregon and Southern Washington, this is OPB.
Funding for local broadcast of Nightly Business Report has been provided by viewers like you and by the following.
Key Bank, encouraging people to take the money they would have spent and save it, because even a little can add up to a lot. More information at key.com/saveday.
The Collins Foundation. The Collins Foundation is dedicated to improving the quality of life in Oregon. Conkling, Fiscum, and McCormick's Me2You Marketing, providing word-of-mouth marketing services to build, sustain, and measure consumer conversations about your products and services.
The Fed gave stocks a helping hand today. Shares surged ahead as the Federal Reserve's Open Market Committee held the line on interest rates. The Dow jumped 98 points and the NASDAQ added 15.
After the closing bell, a big surprise from Dell. The computer maker says Kevin Rollins is out and Michael Dell is back in the top spot.
My Street Critique guest tonight has biotech stocks in her sights. She's Hillary Kramer, market strategist and personal finance editor at AOL.
Also tonight, drilling deeper than ever before. We wrap up our series, Deep Oil, with a look at where the Gulf of Mexico's largest oil reserves are buried and just how to get it out.
I'm Paul Kangas.
And I'm Susie Garup. This is Nightly Business Report for Wednesday, January 31st.
Nightly Business Report is made possible by...
Is your nest egg in shape for retirement? Objective financial advice can help. A.G. Edwards, for more than 118 years, fully invested in our clients.
Franklin Templeton Investments, providing a unique perspective through the specialized investment expertise of Franklin Templeton Mutual Series and Fiduciary Trust. Franklin Templeton Investments, gain from our perspective.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. A big shakeup late today at Dell. CEO Kevin Rollins is out effective immediately. Taking his place, founder and chairman Michael Dell, who returns to run day-to-day operations after a 2.5-year absence. The computer maker struggled under Rollins' leadership as growth slowed and competition heated up, especially with Hewlett-Packard. In a statement, Michael Dell said, quote, Dell has tremendous opportunities ahead of it, end quote. But the company also warned its fourth quarter earnings and revenues would fall below analyst estimates. In after-hours trading, Dell shares surged by as much as 5.5%, but they're still down more than 40% in the last 18 months. Morningstar equity analyst Rick Hanna says he expects Dell to energize employees.
He started the company, so I think that he really embodies, the spirit of the company. He embodies what's made them great. And so by coming back in as the CEO, I think he's kind of settling the troops and saying, look, I'm back in charge now, and we're going to get back to what has always made us great, and I'm going to lead that charge.
Also topping the news today, the Federal Reserve held interest rates steady, and that sent stocks charging ahead. The Dow surged 98 points, just missing a new record high. The Nasdaq jumped 15. Investors were encouraged by Fed comments that the economy is firming while inflation is easing. And for the first time in several meetings, the Fed decision was unanimous. Erica Miller reports.
Fed keeps rates unchanged,
As word of the Fed's decision hit trading floors, stocks shot higher. Experts say policymakers gave investors two pieces of good news. Economic growth is healthy and inflation is receding. In its statement, the Fed said, quote, overall, the economy seems likely to expand at a moderate pace over coming quarters, end quote. Economist Lakshman Achuthan says the Fed is no longer worried a soft housing market will drag down the overall economy.
They are giving us a very clear signal that they are not afraid of a recession. They are not afraid of a hard landing. They have a lot of faith in the durability of this recovery and expansion continuing.
On the inflation front, the Fed said, quote, readings on core inflation have improved modestly in recent months, and inflation pressures seem likely to moderate over time, end quote. The Fed's comments overshadowed its decision to keep its federal funds target rate at 5.25% for a fifth straight meeting. The vote was unanimous. Most Fed watchers expect the Fed to hold rates steady for quite a while, but policymakers still kept their bias toward raising rates if needed to reduce inflation pressures. Some economists, like John Riding of Bear Stearns, see higher rates this summer.
I think the Fed will firm policy when it's clear that GDP growth is running above 3% and that core inflation isn't moderating further and may indeed be picking up. Now, those are the conditions. When will those conditions be seen to be satisfied? I think sometime around the middle of the year.
Investors hope to get a better sense of the Fed's thinking in 2 weeks. On February 14th, Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke will present his semi-annual testimony on the health of the economy to Congress. Erica Miller, Nightly Business Report, New York.
It was a big day for Wall Street. The Dow pushed higher, and President Bush paid a visit for the first time since the 9/11 terrorist attacks. The president spent part of the afternoon on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, bringing trading to a near halt. In a speech earlier in the day at Federal Hall, he praised the economy, saying it's, quote, on a roll. Also on a roll, stocks on Wall Street. They were mixed this morning, with the blue chips bolstered by Boeing thanks to its strong earnings, while the tech sector was slightly lower. At noon, the Dow was up 31 points, NASDAQ down 3. But then at 2:15 p.m., when the Fed announced it would keep rates steady, the broad market took off and lifted the blue chips very close to a new record high. The Dow Industrial Average ended up 98.38 at 12,621.69. The NASDAQ up 15.29 at 2463.93. Standard & Poor's 500 index gained 9.42, ending at 1438.24. Over in the bond market, the 10-year note rose 16/32 to 98 and 18/32, putting the yield at 4.81%.
More analysis now on that Fed decision today to hold interest rates steady. Joining us this evening, Michelle Girard, senior economist at RBS Greenwich Capital Management, and Mike Holland of Holland & Company. Mike, hi, how are you? Nice to see you, Susie. Michelle, let me begin with you. It seems like the Fed is pretty happy with the state of the economy. What's your take on the Fed decision today?
Yeah, I mean, it really, you know, as was pointed out in the comments, I mean, the fact that the Fed was more upbeat about the economy, less concerned about housing. They went so far as to acknowledge that there appear to be signs of stabilization in the housing sector, and the fact that they see inflation beginning to moderate. You know, the changes in the statement not only, reaffirm their decision not to raise rates today or to make any change in rates, but more importantly suggest the Fed doesn't really have much of a reason to make a change in either direction probably anytime soon. And I think for the markets, that's probably, welcome news.
Mike, so what's the Fed's next move? Cut, hike, or steady?
Steady, I think, through the end of the year, Susie. I believe that the markets had a huge sigh of relief that the good news about inflation that we've continued to get for the past several quarters continues and looks even better as of today. We'll get another inflation number tomorrow. All of these inflation numbers have been good, but the Fed has been talking about things getting bad. Today was the first time the markets heard the Fed say, maybe inflation isn't so bad. So there was a huge sigh of relief and a big relief rally, as Paul Kangas just pointed out.
Yes, the Wall Street was very happy with the Fed decision. They say on Wall Street, as January goes, so goes the market. And for January, Mike, the markets, at least the Dow, was up more than 1%. So what does this mean for the rest of 2007?
Well, if the Fed doesn't screw this up, the likely path is continued upward because corporate profits, we heard from Microsoft and GE that their next several quarters look to be very strong by their order books right now. If the economy around the world continues to do what it's doing, we've got a reasonably priced stock market. The path of least resistance for stocks for the year would be up.
Michelle, there was no mention about energy prices in the Fed policy statement, and in the past couple of meetings, they've always talked about energy prices. Has oil been crossed off the Fed's worry list?
Well, the fact that oil prices had come down, I think, was somewhat of a relief. They're sort of stabilizing. I mean, they're bouncing around in a pretty wide range, but at this point, I think that the Fed is not citing it, in part because there's no clear implication, not only which direction they go, but ultimately what the impact would be. So in addition to not mentioning energy, they also left out a whole sort of laundry list of other things going on with inflation. They just basically reiterated that, they do think inflation is moderating. There's some risk it won't come down enough. But, and on balance, they seem very comfortable with the inflation outlook.
Michelle, tomorrow marks the one-year anniversary that Ben Bernanke has taken over as Fed chairman. How do you rate the job he's been doing?
Oh, I think he's done a great job, and I think the markets think he's done a fabulous job, mostly because he appears to have had the right call. The Fed seems to have stopped at just the right time in their tightening campaign. He predicted the economy, that this would be sort of a short slowdown. Inflation would moderate. It's all unfolding just as he, had sort of predicted, and I think it's a great start for his, tenure as the Fed chairman.
Mike, President Bush was on Wall Street today, and as you saw, he had a very warm welcome. Should he get any credit for what's going on in the economy?
Well, he won't get any, but the answer, I believe, is yes. I think the tax cuts have absolutely helped. Particularly, not much has been made of it, Susie. The capital gains and the dividend cuts have been enormous generators of tax revenue for the government, have helped the markets, but I believe that overall business has been helped by the absence of mistakes in Washington, and I believe George Bush has done some good things, yes.
Thank you both. We'll see you in March for the next Fed meeting. Thanks, Susie. We've been speaking with Michelle Girard, Senior Economist at RBS Greenwich Capital Management, and Mike Holland of Holland & Company.
Treasury Secretary Henry Paulson was on Capitol Hill today talking to the Senate Banking Committee about China. Paulson says there's one question he hears most about the Asian nation. Can China hold the U.S. hostage economically because of the huge amount of money that is invested here? The Chinese government owns $350 billion worth of U.S. treasuries. But Paulson says he's not concerned.
Our public treasury debt outstanding is over $4 trillion. Our treasury securities trade $500 billion in a day. So there's more Treasury trading in a day than the Chinese own.
Still, senators from both parties say they're concerned about the slow pace of economic reform in China, and they fear the undervalued Chinese currency is causing us to lose jobs here.
After 2 months of negotiations, U.S. Airways' hostile takeover bid for Delta Airlines has been grounded. Delta's creditors committee rejected U.S. Airways' $9.7 billion bid today. The panel says it supports Delta's plans to emerge from bankruptcy as a standalone carrier. U.S. Airways withdrew its offer, saying the committee was ignoring its fiduciary duties to creditors. Delta says it'll file its bankruptcy reorganization plan later this week. Paul?
As you know, Susie, Delta secured $2.5 billion in exit financing yesterday. Now let's take a look at our other stocks in the news tonight. Most active New York Exchange issue on nearly 20 million shares, General Electric moving up 2 cents, followed by Motorola with a 27-cent gain, then Ford Motor down 7 cents. AT&T moved up 54 cents, and Pfizer, fifth in volume, gained to 14 cents a share. ExxonMobil down 29 cents. Bristol-Myers Squibb up 76 cents. Reportedly, Bristol-Myers has retained the Lehman Brothers, Morgan Stanley, and Citigroup organizations to help field possible takeover bids. Then came a new issue, Employers Holding. This is a company specializing in workmen's compensation. 26.75 million shares offered at 17, opened at 20. The high of the day, 2020. Backed off a little bit, not bad. Time Warner down 17 cents. Fourth quarter earnings out today, excluding one-time items, 22 cents a share. That was about in line with street estimates. J.P. Morgan Chase, 10th in volume, moved up 75 cents. Altria Group down 15 cents. The company today said it will spin off the rest of its Kraft unit on March 30th. Then Boeing up $3.56. That helped the Dow a lot. Traded as high as $90.34. Fourth quarter earnings, $1.29, way up from 58 cents last year. 31 cents better than the street expected. Company boosted 2007 earnings guidance to $4.75. That's about as expected. Allstate down $3.84. Fourth quarter earnings came in at $1.78, but that was 6 cents below the street estimate. Then we see Levitt Corp, the home builder, up $3.28. BFC Financial will acquire it for $286 million in stock. 2.27 shares of BFC for each share of Levitt. That's a value today worth about $14.14 a share. Estee Lauder, $6.17 gain. Second quarter earnings jumped to 99 cents from 38 cents last year. Street estimate way down there at 76 cents, a lot better. Sierra Health Services up $3.93. Fourth quarter earnings, 65, up from 44 last year. Revenues up 20%, and Midwest Securities upgraded it from neutral to buy. On the downside, Celestica tumbling $1.77. Fourth quarter earnings, excluding one-time items, came in at only 3 cents a share, down from 13 last year, and the company predicting a first quarter loss of anywhere from 4 to 15 cents a share. Bear Stearns Brokerage downgraded it from peer perform to underperform. Then another new issue, Duncan Energy Partners, 13 million shares offered to the public at 21 and moved up $2.05 today. Not a bad debut. Google topped the active list, closed up 17. And then, of course, came those big earnings after the close, but the stock tumbled as low as $487 after that. Apple, 18-cent gain. Microsoft, 38-cent rise there. Comverse Technologies down 45 cents. The stock is going to be delisted by NASDAQ because it failed to file its financials on time due to the probe and stock option grants, and also at Standard & Poor's 500 is going to take it out of the 500 index. Cisco, 37-cent gain, fifth in volume on a dollar basis. SanDisk down $2.65. Story here, fourth quarter loss of 17 cents versus earnings of 68 cents last year. Intel, a 3-cent gain. Research in Motion did well, up $4.29, but C.H. Robertson, a $9.44 gain. Fourth quarter earnings, 41 cents up from 33 and 2 cents better than the street expected. And then Nutrisystem shares plunged to $8 on a disappointing first quarter outlook. While they've been risky in the past, tonight's Street Critique guest has some biotech names that she says are worth looking into. She's Hillary Kramer, market strategist and personal finance editor at AOL. Hillary, welcome back to Nightly Business Report.
Thank you, Paul.
Before we dip into the biotechs, Any thoughts on today's Fed decision and its accompanying statement?
Absolutely. I think Wall Street believed what it wanted to hear, which was that rates were not going to rise. Rates have to go up. We have inflation, and we also have a deficit. It's inevitable. That's the direction we're going, and the stock market is going to adjust ultimately once it digests and understands that that's where we're going.
So you think that stocks are overpriced right now?
Absolutely. We have a stock market that's much too frothy, that's gone up much too quickly, and there's a lot of money out there that's going global and that we have to compete against.
Clear words of caution. Okay. Now, why are you taking a second look at biotech? I know for a long time you've advised investors to stay away. Why are you taking this second look at them?
I still say biotech is very risky. It's only for those that have capital that they're willing to lose. Biotechnology has lost people fortunes, but I like that there are some new companies out there worth at least taking a look at.
Let's get specific.
Okay, Medivations, MDV, that's my favorite of the four that I'm
on the American
discussing.
Exchange.
Yes, Medivations is a San Francisco-based company. The CEO, Dr. David Hung, he claims that the medication that he has actually reverses the neurological damage from Alzheimer's. It has been a medication used for 20 years in Russia, an antihistamine, but what it is here is that smart money is going into it. So I myself have taken a shot because I'm watching those that know what clinical trials really are saying.
You won't be the only one watching. How about Cadence Pharmaceutical? I know you like that.
Yes, I love Cadence, CADX. This is a company that has gone out into the international market and in-licensed different products, including an intravenous Tylenol, an acetaminophen that will be introduced here on the market.
There's no question what this next company does, the medicines company.
Yes, this company, also another biotechnology, biopharmaceutical, that has a product which is an anticoagulant that's used in angioplasty, and many believe it might actually compete ultimately against heparin, which has been around for 100 years.
And you're also looking at Seattle Genetics?
Yes, SGEN, and this is an oncology biotechnology company that has quite a number of drugs in the pipeline at different phases in clinical trials, and that's why I like it, the diversity and the management team.
We just have 30 seconds left, but these charts look a little bouncy, very volatile stocks. Does that scare you?
It does scare me, but it's still worth trying. But again, it's money that can be lost. It is risky, but when one of them hits it big, Paul.
Hillary, do you own these issues personally or have any other disclosure to make?
I have decided to try my luck on MDV, Medivations.
Okay.
I'm following the money.
All right. Hillary, good to have you back. We'll see you again next month.
Thank you, Paul.
My guest, Hillary Kramer, personal finance editor at AOL.
Tomorrow, we'll get a check on the big American automakers and their January sales numbers. More than two-thirds of the oil produced in the Gulf of Mexico now comes from water deeper than 1,000 feet. But demand for crude is prompting oil companies to drill in far deeper depths. As we wrap up our series, Deep Oil, Diane Estabrook looks at where the largest oil reserves are likely to be and the higher stakes involved in reaching them.
On board Discoverer Deep Seas, workers prepare wells that Chevron thinks could produce up to 500 million barrels of oil starting next year. The Tahiti field, below 4,300 feet of water in the Gulf of Mexico, was a significant discovery for Chevron. But a potentially bigger field called Jack lies farther south under 7,000 feet of water. Mickey Driver, Chevron's government and public affairs advisor, says Jack lies in a region of ancient rock formations.
That's a trend that many people estimate contains between 3 to 15 billion barrels of oil. That runs for about 200 miles from the central Gulf of Mexico to the western Gulf of Mexico.
The U.S. Department of the Interior estimates the Gulf of Mexico's deep water regions could contain nearly 60 billion barrels of crude oil. At current consumption rates, that is enough fuel to meet U.S. oil demand for 7.5 years. But the oil industry faces significant barriers in bringing much of that oil to market. Deepwater technology is one barrier. Oil service companies like Baker Hughes have had to strengthen drill bits for working in deep water's more challenging conditions. And Halliburton has added sensors and upgraded the abilities of its drill assemblies. But Tim Probert, Halliburton's Senior Vice President of Drilling Evaluation and Digital Solutions, says further improvements are necessary for drilling in depths exceeding 7,000 feet.
Drilling to those kinds of depths requires significant increases in pressure capability for the equipment, up to between 25 and 30,000 pounds per square inch. So we can continue to develop the technologies to make drilling in even deeper applications possible.
Drill rig shortages are another concern. Offshore drilling contractor Transocean has 30 deepwater drill ships in operation and 3 more under construction. The Transocean CEO Robert Long says those rigs are all spoken for.
Right now, we have no availability in 2007 or 2008. In 2009, we have about 20% of our capacity available for contract.
There is also a shortage of talent. Many workers left the oil industry in the late 1990s when crude prices tanked and exploration slowed. Now companies like Mustang Engineering, which design oil platforms, have too much work and not enough people to do it. A.J. Cortez, Mustang's vice president of upstream business, says he is searching for a variety of engineers.
We're looking at other industries as far as bringing in experienced engineers, and we're doing a lot of hiring out of colleges, which there hasn't been a lot of that done until the last 4 or 5 years.
Experts predict oil demand will continue growing for several decades, so that will support growth in oil technology, talent, and equipment. Industry watchers say even if it isn't feasible to produce oil in deep water fields like Jack today, it probably will be in the future. Diane Estabrook, Nightly Business Report in the Gulf of Mexico.
Here's a look at what's happening tomorrow. December personal income and spending, January auto sales, and weekly jobless claims come out. Also tomorrow, earnings from Amazon.com, Anheuser-Busch, Archer Daniels Midland, ExxonMobil, Murphy Oil, and Valero Energy.
Recapping today's market action, encouraging words on the economy from the Fed send the blue chips higher. The Dow gained 98 points and the NASDAQ composite closed up 15. To learn more about the stories in tonight's broadcast, go to Nightly Business Report on PBS.org. You can also email us at nbr@pbs.org.
And that's Nightly Business Report for Wednesday, January 31st. I'm Susie Guerra. Good night, everyone. Good night to you, Paul.
Good night, Susie. I'm Paul Kanagas, wishing all of you the best of goodbye.
Nightly Business Report is made possible by
Franklin Templeton Investments. Our unique perspective helps us see domestic and international markets in a different light. Franklin Templeton Investments. Gain from our perspective.
And by A.G. Edwards.
This program was made possible by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
America's Ball